Hello, welcome to FPLIQ, and we are back again with another guest, and it's Mez again. She's back, Mira. Before we go through the introductions, we'll just do a quick itinerary on what we're doing today. The first topic of discussion we're going to open up with is the idea of selling Haaland. A thought that we all had when we had our wildcard, sort of game week 7, game week 8. It's rearing its head once again. Matchups we're looking at today is Aston Villa against Fulham and Wolves against Spurs. And we're going to be talking about players to potentially buy, sell, and hold, because popular teams that are having some difficult, strong moments, weak moments. We'll also be looking at the individual team and player strengths and weaknesses and predictions of what we can assess and scout what happens before the game. And then we'll review our 4-week game week player picks before picking our new players for the next 4 game weeks, before finally discussing captaincy, which again is pretty much up in the air. Of course, Haaland's always going to be in the discussion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is where we're all going to go. So, welcome back, Mira. Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
It's
Lovely to be able to sub on for Lucian.
It's great. You're on a roll at the moment. Feels like you're doing a lot more on Twitter and a lot more on YouTube. Everywhere. It's great. Good to have you back again. And we said before, it's always great.
A lot of fun.
It's always great to have new, when I said before about new outlooks on the game and a new perspective, and that's something I really like about what we do here. And I'm back again with the old boys, Tien, Planner, Ryan, Chatbox. How we doing, Tien? How you been doing taekwondo again? You said, Tien?
Oh yeah, no, I still do that every week, and today was just a regular class. So no, it was good. Just to have a workout and come back, have a quick shower and relax, and just here talking about FPL. So
what color belt are you?
I'm a second dan black belt.
Oh, that's good. I'll send any bullies your way then. Ryan, how you doing, buddy? How's it going?
Not too bad. Looking forward to today's show. I thought we'll have like a much more discussion, especially with the Haaland topic, but then he decided to go and score 2 goals, and then
be fit for Champions League. Yeah, I know. But
I know.
As soon as he's fit for Champions League, he bangs in a couple, and we're just like, oh my God, I was going to sell Haaland. But that's the way it is. So we're off the back of what can only be described as a cluster muck of a game week. I'm trying to keep it PG friendly with the language, because it was the week before, it was like you needed 70 or 75 points to keep even if you were like 1.5 million rank, you needed like 70 points to be safe. And then this game week, you needed like 20 or 25 to keep rank. And we've not got like bad teams. It wasn't like, I've already pinpointed, is it week 13 when it's like Aston Villa and Spurs and Newcastle and City, they're all playing each other, and it's going to be a bit of a iffy week in game week 13. But we were going into that thinking this is going to be another 70-point week. And let's just go around. How many points? By the way, I was like a lot of people. I had Archer and Kabore on the bench, who I was never going to start. I'm happy that they've got the ability to get points if I need them, but they were never getting into my 11. But just going around then, I got 27. Mira, how did you do?
I did all right, although I sort of finished the game week thinking I've done terribly until I saw FPL Twitter and realised I'd done okay with 39 points.
39?
I know.
That's
I know.
Incredible.
It's a haul. That's a haul.
It is, exactly. Tien, what was your finish for this week?
I got 32, which was enough to get me a small green arrow. So, can't complain.
A small green arrow with 32 points. Ryan, how did you do?
Yeah.
33.
33.
So just a tiny bit more boosted on TNC.
I'm the only one in the 20s. What can you say? Look, I went in and I was on 24 points going into double Spurs attack to Chelsea. thinking, well, it's been terrible for everyone, but surely I got 3 points from 2 players going into that game because it's another pack of records. My only good fortune for this week, my second bench is Archer with 9. Kabore with 8 is my third bench. My first bench, Udogi. So if Simicast didn't come on for the last 23 minutes, that's a -5. So Simicast coming on has actually given me a clean sheet yellow card amount of points for Simicast because I had a doggy first sub. Oh, imagine how much worse it could have been if that would have happened. But there we go. Sailor V. Let's kick off with the first one about Erling Haaland. Then I'll just say quickly. Look, we make these topics and discussions earlier on in the week so we can do more research and plan what we're going to say. And like Ryan's already alluded to, this was before he was fit for the Champions League game and before he decided to smash some goals in. So I just think if he was out for a couple of weeks, it's a potential sell because there's a potential upside. But I still would have said no because you won't, unless you've got a wild card, you won't spread the cash fast enough and then get the cash back to make it worthwhile. So it's a transfer out, and then if you're going to bring him in, let's say all the way to when's that blank? Game week 18. Okay. Game week 17.
Yes, 18.
Game week 18. So if you were like, okay, I'll sell him now in game week 12, I'll bring him back in 19 after the blank. You're not going to sell him and use that money enough and then sell all those players to get him back in to make it worthwhile. So it's not just the fact that he's fixture proof and he's got a ridiculous EO. With the players that you can swap into, like I don't know who you would upgrade. I don't know where you would go. Yeah, you could give yourself, let's say, Watkins and Wilson up front, and you've got like, what, 7-ish million in the bank. You've probably already got Salah. You've probably already got Son and or Maddison and or Saka. You've probably already got Trippier. What are you going to do with 7 million? Where you can, and there's so many good options at 6 to 7 million, like Diaby, like Matoma, who have already got. Like I wouldn't know what to do with it, and then I'd have to sell them all and get them back. So for me, if you were going to do it, you should have done it on a wild card in like game week 7 or game week 8. Not now. Tien, we'll go to you because you're next on the list.
Yeah, I think I agree with what he said. It's not a simple answer. It's like, oh yes, you should do it, or no, you shouldn't. Like everything else, there's pros and cons, right? So for for the pros, so he doesn't have the best fixtures in the next 4. So probably you could say, at least three of them, or even all 4 of them, he's not the best captain option. So then you could argue that he's not, the best value for 14 million. And then you can, if you sell, then you can use the money to make significant upgrade elsewhere. And the other thing is, his EO is very high, right? So this is, selling him is an aggressive play. So basically, you're betting against him blanking in the next 4 games, or not getting many returns in the next 4 games, and your alternative picks will return well. So that's pretty much it. But in terms of the cons, obviously because of his high EO, if he's returns, then he's going to hurt your rank a lot. And we all know that, what he's capable of, right? Especially now with the Doku factor, he may actually do better in some harder games because Pep might choose to play Grealish instead of Doku, which is potentially more beneficial for Haaland. But the biggest cons, in my opinion, is the book transfers that you will need to have, or you have to put aside to get him back for game week 16 and 17, where he plays Luton and Crystal Palace. And generally, you will need at least 2 transfers to get him back in. Potentially even more if you spread the funds very, thinly. And basically, after this week, you only have 4 free transfers between now and game week 16. So 2 of them will be set aside. At least 2 of them will be set aside for Haaland, which means that you don't have a lot of free transfers left to deal with other problems or fires in your team, and especially in preparation for the blind game week 18 as well. I think it's very crucial that whatever transfer you are planning to do now, you should at least keep an eye on or blind game week 18 in terms of who you got coming off the bench. If you need to bench the like of Haaland or Mbomo, because if your bench players are not playing or they're not very good, or they have a hard fixture, then game week 18 is going to be an issue. So, but I think all in all, it is very, very team dependent. So, in deciding whether you want to do it or not, I think you just ask yourself, Haaland is fit now. He played in the Champions League, so I think he's going to play all 4 games. Is he the priority transfer out for your team, especially if you've got like 3 or 4 yellow or red flags in your team? So I would rather, spend my free transfers on fixing the problems in my team rather than and prepare for the long term rather than selling Haaland. And as you said, who do you even buy for Haaland? Like the striker options are very limited at the moment. I think Watkins is obvious, but most people have him. And even buying Watkins now, if you don't have him, is probably a bit too late. Because I think their fixtures are getting a little bit harder after this game week anyway. Alvarez, well, same fixtures, so what's the point?
Money. And then what do you
and he's
do with
playing
it?
and he's playing in game week 18 as well, so you're bringing in another problem for no good reason. Darwin, Nketiah, Wilson, Haaland, Ferguson, either minutes risk or currently potentially injured or very short term. So, all the options are not really outstanding. Now, of course, you could argue that if you've got 2 free transfers, you would upgrade one of the midfielders to, I don't know, Son or Saka or Salah. If you don't have Salah, then I think that's a good case to do it. But once again, it depends on what your midfields look like. So if you've got a very decent midfield already, then there's no need to do that. And I think more importantly, how are you going to get Haaland back without sacrificing the team for game week 18 and sacrificing the team in general as well? Because you need to spend transfer to sell him now and then a couple of transfers to get him back. So I think for my team, it doesn't make a lot of sense to sell him now. But it could be for someone with like 2 free transfers and who doesn't have anything else to do and would like to play aggressively. So I think, ask yourself those questions. If you can answer those questions and you know what to do, then it's fine. Go ahead and do it. But if you think that in your plan you need to take a hit to sell him this week, or you take a hit to get him back, then it's probably not worth it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Fair. Mira?
So I started the game week, the end of last game week, thinking I was definitely going to be selling Haaland, and I would say I'm still on the fence on that. So I think because he's had a poor return of, like run of fixtures, like for whatever reason, he's not had many returns during those fixtures. And I think Ryan's going to be chatting more about like the Doku sort of factor. So I'll let him sort of, cover more around that. But yeah, I think Ryan and I were talking about this on one of his streams previously, that his output has definitely been affected. And we saw that in the last game week as well. Like to have a 6-1 match against Bournemouth and not get any returns is a shocker, right? It's enough to sort of put anyone off, basically. So look, in my case, I'm still okay with the idea of losing Haaland for a couple of game weeks. I've got 2 free transfers at the moment. Not a lot to do in general. Like right now, there isn't that much to do. And so the players that I've been thinking about bringing in were Wilson and Ketia. Now, the problem with that is that, we've got some news that Jesus might be selected for the Brazil, squad, which means, he might be back sooner than we thought for, Arsenal. And Ketia also picked up a knock and didn't play in the UCL, so not sure how good, bad that looks at the moment. Wilson also picked up a knock, and at the moment, though, you've got Gordon and Wilson sort of playing, that number 9 role, which we saw in the last, the last match for Newcastle. And so, from that point of view, I am really tempted by Wilson. I've already brought Wilson into my team earlier in this season, and he's done pretty good, like during the 2 game weeks that I kept him. But yeah, so I'm a bit tentative, at the moment as well. So I think it will come down to what we hear about Wilson. So I am definitely tempted. I don't know if I'll spread those funds though. So I think, Rob, you made a really good point about, like you just keep that money in the bank, because there's not, if I look at my team, there's not many transfers that I need to make for the next couple of game weeks unless something urgent happens. And so from that point of view, I'm thinking, do I just leave some money in the bank because eventually I want to, come off of Watkins? And so instead of, like I bring in Wilson or I bring in Nketiah, depending on what we hear, and then I can bring in Haaland back into my team for Watkins later on as well. So, and that way, the money that I'm sort of spreading, I'm not really spreading it too far because my midfield is stacked at the moment. So I don't think that I would change much of my midfield. I don't have Son or Maddison in my team either. So from a funds point of view, yeah, I've got a couple of price points there that I'm quite happy with. Could sort of go up and down. But really fair point that TN made as well, that who do you bring in if they are injured? So it just makes that transfer completely pointless. There's no point going and getting in Alvarez because we're going to have the same issue. So yeah, look, from that point of view, it's a tricky one. But I'm really tempted by Wilson just because like Bournemouth have conceded 22 goals from the centre, from the middle. So I think I'm going to have to leave it right down to the wire and work out, the risk appetite from there, because I do have 2 free transfers as well.
Yeah. So in regards to Bournemouth, they are the second worst for goals conceded, second worst for shots conceded in the box, third worst for shots conceded out the box, second worst for total, and second worst for shots on target conceded. Like the thing there, the reason why I laughed when you were talking about Wilson is it's like, when is he not injured? You're like, he's picked up another knock. Oh, and water is wet, right? Like it's all the time. The thing with Wilson that I don't like on the FPL website is it says hamstring, and anytime I see anything that says hamstring, makes me feel like it's like a 1 week minimum issue. Like if it says like knock or something like that, like they can get over it. But anytime you see hamstring, you just think, and you can't believe anything Hal says. Like Botman was supposed to be out weeks ago, and the amount of time last season as well with Isaac, when Isaac was out, oh yeah, he should be back next week, and he was out for another like 2 months or something ridiculous. So it's a really, really tough one. Like Bournemouth is there and it's tasty, but it's a really big risk. So we've already sort of alluded to what's coming, because this topic was originally brought up by Ryan, and Mira's mentioned it, and I said it myself last week about why I was really going to consider Captain Salah, is because the week before, Haaland, I just don't think he likes Doku, because Doku is just like, he's greedy, and it literally, I know he went off at half time, but we literally just saw in that first half what Doku does to Haaland, basically. In Champions League, Grealish Grealish got an assist, right? And Haaland was like 2 goals, and then, no Doku, Haaland scores, Doku, whatever. But going to your point then, Ryan?
Okay, so yeah, so when I initially brought this up, it was before the Spurs game, which is a key point to mention because when I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, I've got Watkins in my team, and Haaland, and then I've got no Heung-min Son as well. So I was like, okay, downgrade Haaland to Nketiah, upgrade maybe one of my midfielders to a Heung-min Son, because I thought Heung-min Son will also be one of the we've already touched on Game Week 13, where it's a tough week. I thought Son was like one of the better captaincy options for that week as well. So you were kind of getting Wolves fixture and a good captaincy option for Game Week 13 as well. Now, obviously, what happened in Spurs kind of has a huge domino effect. Not the result, but the events that happened in it has a domino effect on, I feel like, in terms of how we choose players now for FPL. The other thing is the Doku factor. Not only the Doku factor, but Doku and Alvarez as a combination factor. Alongside the lack of a Grealish, no Foden, who didn't play in that last game, came on as a sub. Stones in defense rather than in midfield. All of that contributes to like lack of service towards Haaland, I feel like. Whereas you have Doku and Alvarez, and they're like, "Give me the ball, I'll dribble and shoot." Or 1-2. They do the 1-2, and they're like Martial for United. He does a 1-2, but the way he does the 1-2, he wants it back. And this is basically the same thing that's happening with Doku as well. He's an amazing 1v1 dribbler, but he's not a creator for the moment. Now, maybe that will change later down the line, and Pep will try and find a way to get Haaland getting goals. And for the end of the day, he is that talisman, so he will find a way to solve that system. But after like Doku did what he did, I was like, God, this is just going to be a nightmare. So I was looking at the fixtures, and I was like, the one thing is Doku hasn't played those big games against Arsenal and United, where City want more control. So that's where you probably expect like a Jack Grealish. So that'll be a game against probably Liverpool. And initially, I was thinking potentially Chelsea as well, because I thought the Spurs game will be more Doku because of like how attacking Spurs are compared to Chelsea. They're a bit more better defensive team compared to Spurs. But now, given that Doku didn't play midweek and was rested, more likely to play Chelsea. Grealish might play Liverpool after the international break, and then Doku potentially again against Spurs. And maybe Villa, I don't know, it depends because there's a Champions League and all in the middle as well. So, and like, Haaland, you want Haaland as a captaincy option in those weeks, and then you've got Haaland with the players who will supply him against it in the Liverpool game, and you're like, that's not the game you really want to captain Haaland for. But it might be one because everyone will just default to that because like there is like no proper captaincy choice that specific week. Now, the reason now I've slightly gone against it is because of what Mira touched in terms of players that were options have suddenly fallen like flies. And we've got Nketiah, who I thought might be a decent hold, at least for 3 to 4 game weeks, because my idea was like, okay, sell Haaland. Once Watkins' fixtures turn after game 15, bring Haaland back via selling Watkins, and there's enough funds in the bank to solve all of that. So that's not a problem. I also have 2 free transfers. My bench is also pretty decent because I've got 4 million Lascelles also who can play if needed. But the replacements are the problem now. So Nketiah, now potentially a 1-week punt with Gabriel Jesus potentially called up to the Brazil squad. Although I don't know if he'll travel because Arsenal have contacted Brazil to try and find out with regards to that. But that means he's still at least potentially available to play for them. Even if he's not like, even if he doesn't go, that means he's fit enough to go and like play. Now that makes Nketiah as like a 1-week, maybe 2-week punt at best. Not great, but it is what it is. So then you go, okay, I couldn't go Wilson. I didn't think about Wilson because of I already had triple Newcastle, and we've spoken about Wilson's injury status on this show quite often. And then Heung-min Son was the other one to upgrade in midfield. Now, we'll talk about Spurs later, but I feel like what happened to Spurs affects their attack quite a bit as well. And that kind of puts me off Heung-min Son for the moment, or Spurs in general for the moment. And it also, in return, made the Spurs game for City probably a bit more better because Romero is still not back by then. Van der Ven is probably not going to be back by then as well. They basically don't have a difference at that point in terms of they're going to play Eric Dyer and I don't know who they're going to partner with.
Højbjerg.
Yes. So that is not the same level. So that even though Doku might be on the pitch at that time, it's still that defense is so bad that Haaland could get an opportunity, like his second goal in the Champions League this week. I guess it depends on which definition of tapping you call it. I've seen that being floated about, but yeah, that's very possible against Spurs. So I've kind of gone away from the sell Haaland, and because the options in terms of replacements really didn't step up or were there before the Spurs Chelsea game and have all now somewhat disappeared. But if you have Wilson option, like Mira mentioned, I can't go there because I'm already tripled up. I don't mind it, although I do worry about the injury status and the fact that even though we really can't trust Eddie Howe, for now I think Isak is scheduled to return after the international break, according to the FPL app. That may be false. You never know. But yeah, that's the thing. So no options means Haaland potentially stays. And also, I've got Madison in my team, which is now a problem that I kind of have to think about whether I need to sell him or not. So I'll probably use my transfer there. And even if it's fit, I probably downgrade him because of what we'll discuss in the Spurs game.
Yeah, I still think from Newcastle, Gordon is a great option, and even Lascelles now. Very interested in Livramento. I've been saying about how he's an incredible understudy to Trippier. Like, Newcastle's right back position could be sorted for the next 10 years. But with Burn looking like he's out, and Eddie Howe doesn't usually say long term. And not meaning he usually lies the other way around, right? He usually is like, oh, he might be back, and then they're not. He doesn't usually say, oh, they're out long term, and then bam, they're in the next weekend. So Livramento could potentially be in the lineup. So I still like the defense. I just put on the picture as well when you were talking about Haaland and the way Spurs play with the attack. I've just put the picture that from the Chelsea game.
Chelsea highline, yeah.
With the ridiculous highline when they're on the halfway line. Imagine Haaland just sprinting through the middle of that against Eric Dyer and Højbjerg and whoever. It's just when we're going to talk about Spurs, but the thing for me, Spurs is just the attack is where you look. I don't care if they concede 5 goals as long as they go and score 2 themselves, So we are going to go on to our first matchup, and it is Aston Villa against Fulham. So the first question is going to be talking about buy, hold, sell Villa. Very popular on everyone's wildcards. Diaby's sort of on and off with his weeks of doing well, and Watkins was very, very hot, and the last 2 game weeks, very, very cold. But before that, he was just Mr. Consistent. He was Mr. 5 points every week, right? So going into this one, starting with my notes, I've just said, I'm just curious if Aston Villa suffer from travel sickness. I don't know if they miss their home blankie, not comfortable in sleeping in a different bed to their own, because I don't know if there's a bigger night or day team in the Premier League that has quality, because I know Luton are decent at home and they get smashed all the time, but I don't know if there's a good team that is so night and day with their home and away. 5 out of 5 wins at home, 20 goals they've scored at home. They've smashed everyone at home. Away, 5 games, won 2, drawn 1, lost 2, 5 goals. They've scored 4 times as many at home. They've scored 20 goals in 5 games. That's outrageous. But only 5 goals in 5 away from home. Villa have Fulham at home next. So I know a lot of people are getting a bit itchy feet because of Watkins not going ahead. But we've talked about it before. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go from Watkins? They've still got a couple of decent fixtures. He's not an emergency transfer out. So Villa, Fulham next. They're so mid. They're one of those teams that you don't have any of the players. Not even as a cheap sub. I don't know anyone, maybe except Leno, but I think a lot of people saw him on a wild card. I don't think I've seen a Fulham player in a single FPL team. A single one. Have you guys seen a Fulham player in any FPL team?
Not recently. Before wildcard.
And
Leno
it was Leno.
Yeah, they were there. Yeah.
Right?
I know.
And that's
Yeah.
it. And if people have wildcarded, they've sold him. I don't know anyone who wildcarded and kept Leno in goal. Spurs, mix my notes up. Oh no, here we go. But the high line for me against Fulham, they can expose. What I was asking. Why? I just think for this game of buy and sell and hold, specifically for Villa ones, there's just no reason to get rid of them. Diaby and Watkins can get behind this pretty slow defense of Ream and Bassi. And I'll put the high line graph on from under the radar because Fulham are a team that have, just put it on now, Fulham are a team that have quite a high line for the quality. They're in the medium block section. And for a team, usually like the better quality the team is, the higher that they have their line, right? And Fulham is towards the upper level of that medium block. The funny one here is Burnley, who look like absolute imposters with a ridiculous high line. You know, in line with Liverpool and Arsenal and just behind City, and that's probably why they've currently got like the worst Premier League start to a season ever. And they're still not changing, but whatever. Sticking on task. I know the fixtures aren't looking fantastic coming up, but I probably wouldn't be buying them. But you've got Fulham at home. They're incredible at home. Spurs away. The defense aren't going to be all back. And again, they play a high line. They have that Ange ball system where they concede goals. And then they've got Bournemouth away. That's the iffy one because, it's Bournemouth. We said earlier, they are like the second worst in terms of defensive stats in the Premier League behind Sheffield United. But it's away. So it just depends which Aston Villa is going to turn up. So I probably... And then it's... But here's the difficult one for me. Then it's City Arsenal. And then you're thinking, well, that's an easy sell then, isn't it? Because it's City Arsenal. They're home games. They're at home. And they're amazing at home. So for me, I probably won't be buying them. I'm definitely not selling them. So it's a hold for me, I think. Tim, will go to you as my daughter crawls.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you just said. Villa are a different beast at home. So currently I have Cash, Diaby, and Watkins in my team, so I'd definitely be keeping all of them for Fulham. I'm open to sell from next week, probably in the order of Diaby, Cash, and Watkins. Mostly because midfield is probably where I want to, spend my transfers on. But even if I have other fires, I think it's okay to keep Villa assets for the longer run as well. Especially if you can bench them against, Spurs away or Man City or Arsenal. Like, Cash, for example. If you have other fires and Cash seem to be fit, I think, then you could certainly keep him because they play Sheffield United in the blank game week 18 as well. So if you are forced to keep him sort of beyond game week 14, 15, or 16, you might as well just keep him for 18. And similarly with Watkins, if there are no clear forward options that he can go to, I don't think he's a bad option to keep either, because he's probably just got to tick along nicely. So Diaby is probably the first one to go for me, probably potentially from next week.
Okay. So I also want to point out the predicted lineup screenshots I got from Fantasy Football Scout. So I don't want to pretend that I've made them. It's just so when we talk about matchups, I think they have great predicted lineups. I can't get them written out, but they make them look nice. Ryan, thoughts on Villa assets?
So for me, Villa, you keep them this week because they're at home. Next week onwards, I think you can sell the midfield players because there are so many other good midfield options. Whereas if you own Cash or Watkins, and like I mentioned about the Haaland replacement options, there aren't that many forwards saying, come by me. But so I probably would keep Watkins, yes, at least until 15. Similar for Cash. And then after that, it depends on your team structure, whether you can afford to bench the likes of a Cash maybe for those two tough games against City and Arsenal. And Watkins, that would depend. Initially, I would probably look to sell and then maybe think about buying again in 18. I would probably do a hokey cokey with Alvarez for that Luton game, and they have another good fixture as well, if I'm not mistaken. Crystal Palace game.
Palace.
Yeah, so I might do a hokey cokey there and then get Watkins back for Gameweek 18 because I don't have too much value tied up with Watkins. That's the one thing. Or depends on KDB situation and when he's expected to return. Maybe then I potentially keep Watkins as well and play him. End of the day, it's a home game. City have shown the ability to concede when they get sloppy after being high, like in terms of a lead. So maybe Watkins can potentially get on that. Arsenal will be a tough game in terms of goals. They don't really concede too much. So overall, I think you keep midfield can sell, defense and forward play week by week after 15 probably.
Yep. Mira, thoughts on Villa?
Yeah, same sentiments. So I've got Cash and Watkins. I'm probably inclined to get rid of Cash a little bit sooner. I was listening to the Always Cheating podcast the other day, and they were saying something about how Cash is almost sort of, jack of all trades, master of none at the moment. He's got like way too much freedom to sort of, or the license to kind of roam a little bit, and he's not sort of connecting with some of those chances or not creating those chances. And yeah, so we're not seeing the Cash that we saw earlier in the season, and even then he's not really had that same sort of level of output, right? So yes, I'm inclined to get rid of Cash, maybe for Estupinian, depends on what's going on there with him. So yeah, I'm happy to part with Cash a little bit sooner. Watkins, like you guys say, like where do we go? And that's the problem. And so it's a tricky one because, like, look, Villa had Luton at home. Watkins didn't get any returns. And so it's really hard to know. And I think with Diaby there as well, who's sort of tucking in, right behind or alongside Watkins at the moment, it's really hard to know how those fixtures at home are going to go as well. So I don't mind dropping Watkins a little bit earlier if it came down to it, just because Darwin is also an option. I know, like Darwin's getting loads of chances. He's not finishing off those chances, but I'd rather have Darwin from game week 14 where they've got Fulham and Watkins potentially sort of not returning. Has his form dropped a little bit? Maybe it has. I'm not sure. So I'm very tentative on that one, just because there is definitely sort of other options there as well. They may not be better. They may be maybe just as good. But yeah. So Cash, depending on what's going on with Stupinian sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I've said a lot about Estupinian. Really looking for. I've not owned him this season. I was one of the few who didn't at the start of the season when he was like 55% on. I went like steal instead, and it worked out in the end. But the thing that surprises me, and I think it's because a lot of people got Cash later than I did, but a lot of people are just like, I've got Cash and just not. I don't know why, but I still don't have that inkling to sell him. Like, because again, we keep saying, and I'll mention it later about like. When we talk about, I think it's the Spurs section, that where are you going to go? Like, who, apart from Estupinian, like, we've all got Trippier. Maybe you're going to buy, sell him, hold him, right? Quite a few of us now got Simicast. Like, the back three this season has always been Trippier, Cash, and someone. He's been a staple, right? Cash has been a staple in most people's back threes, because I think most people play 3-5-2. Who else, apart from Estupinian, who still hasn't been on the pitch, who's been in a bit of a long-term injury, and a Brighton side that rotates whenever the hell they want to, who are you going to go to from Cash? You're going to go for Palace. They've got 4 good fixtures, but then after that, they go tough. I like Palace defense. We'll chat about them a bit later because when we talk about player picks. Newcastle, you got Trippier. You could save a bit of money, go Lascelles, but he's out the team whenever Botman comes back. You can go Livramento, but is he the one who's going to play with Dan Burn now? Or is it going to be Hall? Or is it going to be like forgotten people like Drummond or whenever what's the left back called?
Hugged?
But he's injured. What's his
Yeah.
Target? That's what I'm thinking.
Target.
But
Yeah.
Dummett's there. Target's still injured, but we don't know if Liverpool's going to be there. So who reliable? And I know people might say he's not reliable, but he's attacking. He'll play 90 minutes. He's the Villa right back in a very, very good at the moment. I think the top 5 Aston Villa. I mean, they're up there. If they'd have won, I think they'd have gone third. And he's an attacking player. He's not like a centre back. Like, yeah, you can go Saliba and try and get centre back points, but where are you going to go if you're leaving cash now? Like, I just feel as though people, I don't know what they're expecting for 5 million. Like, they're fine with midfielders or forwards getting, 10 points over 3 game weeks, but as soon as Cash does it as a defender, he's like arch enemy number 1. I think it's a little bit strange. Let's go into, so we'll go around about the team strengths. This part will just be short before we go into like predictions of what might occur. So in terms of Aston Villa against Fulham, we've already talked about it. Home, so many goals. I can't remember how many games they've won or not lost at home now. Is it something like 18 or 19 games they haven't lost at home? It's a very good
They're
run,
on a streak.
Huge streak, and they're smashing anyone at home. They're against a slow Fulham defence that still isn't best 11 because I think Bassi is still predicted to start there. And I'm sorry, but for Fulham, there's just no team strengths. They're not even like they're not high up on anything. This is why I said earlier, and I asked, have you ever seen a Fulham player? It's not like, they've got, when people say like Gabriel's a threat on set pieces, and there's not really like the goals to back that up. Like, people will say certain teams or certain players are good at certain things. What are Fulham good at? And I sound horrible when I say that. I mean, in terms of FPL, apart from when Pereira last year was like 4.5 million, they don't score. They don't have a goal scorer. They don't have a good striker because Mitrovic is gone. Because I love Mitrovic. He was great. He was like a 6.5 million gem who was in our side for a lot of last season. They've got Carlos Vinicius and they've got Raul Jimenez, who couldn't score a goal if you put it on a, gift wrapped it and put a bow tie on it and stuck it on the 6-yard box line. They probably still would find a way to miss it. So they can't score goals. The defense, I'm a Bolton Wanderers fan. I know, this is why I know more about Tim Ream and Robinson than most people, because I used to watch them. And they're not getting better with age. Like, Jedi Robinson is really fast, but when we talk about the weakness, look at all the tables, look at all the stats, look at goals conceded, XG, whatever. It's not even like, actually, they're the best team at corners. Can't even sit here and say they make the most chances from throw-ins. I have nothing of a strength for Fulham. They have a good manager, good tactics. I think João Palhinha is a fantastic central defensive midfielder, but that means nothing in FPL. So, sorry, Fulham fans. But, yeah, that's the strengths part. But if that's the strength, wait for the weaknesses. 10. Team strengths for Villa and Fulham.
Fulham first. I don't think I have anything to add. But yeah, for Villa, I think the stats back up what we saw on the pitch as well. So at home, they actually currently rank first for the number of goals scored at home amongst all Premier League teams. So they score 20, right? And that's the highest. They ranked 4th on the XG at home. It's about 2.4 XG per match at home. And they got most chances created through the middle. So I think it's going to be a good game for Watkins and potentially Diaby as well, depending on how they line up. So yeah, it's looking good for Villa.
Ryan, team strengths? Both teams?
Well, we mentioned already, Villa are a beast at home. In terms of Fulham, maybe not this fixture, but they do have a few decent fixtures upcoming. And I know a lot of us have Areola and like, why the hell did we go for this keeper? He's also a shit. Maybe you could potentially go for Leno. Maybe after this, he'll get a few save points. They have Burnley in game week 18. It's not bad. So maybe you could go there. But apart from that, there's nothing positive for Fulham.
I couldn't find anything where they're like top 3 or top 4. Like I'm at the dregs, man. I'm at like deep corners or corner success rate. I can't find anything. Mira, anything for Fulham positive team strengths? Can you find anything?
Oh my gosh. So my brother-in-law is a massive Fulham supporter, and I wish I'd asked him actually before coming onto this. Um, yeah, like you say, I think last season, I can't believe we all had Andres, Pereira in our teams as that sort of 4.5 mil, midfielder that we benched his points game week after game week, right? Same with Mitrovic, excellent sort of, performer. Like he just got the pens and the goals, and yeah, this season, honestly, I can't think of anything. I honestly can't think of anything. They've just lost so much, from that team. And I was actually just going to have a look where Fulham are sitting in the league, and they're, 15th in the league at the moment, which is actually a little bit higher than what I thought they would be. Just because they've been conceding a lot of goals. And I think someone in chat, so Chill in the chat mentioned Castagna as a 90 minutes reliable sub. Will get the occasional clean sheet. That's fair. They've, like you say, Palinia, Castagna, yeah. Leno, there is, Leno's a really good keeper, right? So when we think about Areola, like you say, Ryan, Leno's not a bad shout, like from just will get those save points. And I think he's a pretty good bonus points magnet as well.
Yeah. In pre-season when we did the Fulham video, me and Lucian, I said Leno was a great choice because he faces the most amount of shots. So that's why. Because with the cheap, when you start a season with a cheap goalkeeper, you want one that has a good defense, but the goalkeeper makes lots of saves, and Leno was, right near the top of that. I have one good thing about them. They are the 5th. So talk about Castagna. They are the 5th best team at stopping chances down their right-hand side. There you go. Chances conceded down the right flank. They've conceded 26. Only Newcastle, Brighton, City, and Arsenal are better than them.
I guess that's bad for Luka Dean. Matty Cash, though.
Well, yeah. But in terms of crosses conceded, they're mid-table again. So I don't know how that works out. But we have a positive, and that is all we can hope and dream for Fulham. It's not like... The strength, I think, for Fulham is... that I missed is... and I've got to say, they don't get smashed. I said the same thing about Everton. They lose games 1-0, 2-1, 2-0. Like, I don't usually see them get an absolute drubbing. Despite, I feel, the lack of quality within the side. I can't remember the last time I saw Fulham lose by like 4 or 5 goals. And we've seen it a few times already this season. So that's one thing. So team weaknesses. Tend to concede goals and didn't keep clean sheets against Forest, Luton, Wolves, and Burnley. So that's Aston Villa. You'd expect a couple of clean sheets in that one. So the fact that Aston Villa, a positive for Fulham and a weakness for Aston Villa is they seem to concede goals. Also, they haven't played yet, but they're in Europe this week. Is it Ajax again?
Oh, no, that's Brighton.
That's Brighton.
You mean Villa, yeah.
Who's Villa got? Well, they're in Europe, right?
AZ
Alkmaar.
AZ Alkmaar in
Alkmaar.
well, I was in the right
Alkmaar,
country
yeah.
with the Netherlands.
And they're playing at home as well. So yeah.
Well, they're probably going to smash them then, aren't they? With how they are at home. But midweek tightness, you don't know. Like Diaby didn't play the last one, which actually panicked me because then I thought, oh my god, now is he going to be out for Bailey? So they could be a bit tired. Fulham, I just put. We've already discussed Fulham, but everywhere where Palinia isn't is a weakness for Fulham. But even he cost Fulham the point against Man United by kicking it straight to Bruno Fernandes right there. So you can't even trust him. Fulham have the most errors leading to a goal in the Premier League with 4. So they're not just bad in terms of stats. They're also literally making mistakes that gift goals to the opposition. So they're not defending well, they're not attacking well, and they're also gift wrapping goals to other teams. More than any other team in the Premier League. I've said a lot about Fulham this season because when I talked about triple captaining Haaland against Fulham, and people are like, oh, well, Pelini's bad, might be better. No, they're still terrible. Team weaknesses, Tien?
Yeah, not much Villa at home. I think defensively they strong. They're much stronger at home as well. So I'm banking on a clean sheet here. But yeah, Fulham. You've already said a lot of stats, but they the third worst defense away from home. 1.7 goals conceded per match away. So as I said, it's not massive. It's they don't give away like 3 or 4 goals regularly. But once again, they got most chances conceded through the middle. So if you look at the matchup, right, Villa is the best attacking wise through the middle, and Fulham is the worst through the middle. So I don't know. Am I talking up Watkins as a captaincy option? I think we'll touch on that later, but it does look good for Watkins and all DRB,
Really
of
does.
course. Yeah.
Ryan, team weaknesses?
Villa, not really. I guess one thing I'll add with Villa, and if people are thinking about selling Matty Cash, it seems like De Zerbi has said that Estupinan, he won't take a risk with Estupinan in the Ajax game, but because he needs him for an important game on Sunday, so he might feature against Sheffield United. For anyone who's looking, that's the only thing with regards to Villa, but. In terms of Fulham are bottom 4 for both attack and defense away. So you should be fine with Villa defenses as well in terms of potentially a clean sheet.
Who's going to score? Who's going to score for Fulham? Pereira. Pereira's not even... Is Pereira injured? Because he's not even in the predicted lineup. He's not dropped, is he? No. I don't know why Andreas
Somebody like a
isn't...
Team Ream or something.
Yeah, I don't know why Andreas Pereira is not in the scout predicted lineup. Got a Wobie down the middle. Well, whatever. He's the only one I would believe in that side because the rest are bobbins. Mira?
Yeah, I've honestly not got much more to add than what you guys have already. I did see Freddie mention Willian, probably best of players going forward there for Fulham. But no, yeah, I think I'm now tempted by Watkins' captaincy as well.
Yeah. Honestly, when we talk about captain later, it is always between the two big boys, but it's one of those weeks where it's open, and the only thing that's I'll just touch that because we'll talk about it later, but the only thing that puts me off is European fixtures for a lot of players. So going to predictions, I've just got 3-1 here, and I think we're all going to be around the same sort of idea because I put Diaby and Watkins can expose a slow and weak centre of Ream and Bassi, whilst Cash will match up against Robinson, who is incredibly fast, but he is very inconsistent and error prone. Like I said, I used to watch him at Bolton, and he was great in a lower division, and Ream makes mistakes as well. And Shane, you've already said about how soft that centre is, and literally Diaby and Watkins both play down the middle. So, and I've only gone 3-1 because, like I said, Villa tend to concede a goal. City-esque wise, like they're winning 4-1, 5-1, even 6-1. They're still conceding a goal. But my specific prediction is going to be they're going to break them down the middle, but I think Cash is going to have Robinson on toast. Tien, your predictions or matchup suggestions?
I'm really hoping for a Cash clean sheet, but a moderate 2-0 win for Villa.
They don't get smashed, so seems fair. Well, I've just seen the document and we're building up here because Ryan, what's your prediction for this one?
3-0 because they haven't scored less than 3 at home all time this season. So
Liverpool-esque, you would say, Ryan, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because there was a period when Liverpool was scoring 3 goals every single game. But Villa at home can't stop scoring. Mira?
I reckon there's going to be more goals. I think it's probably going to be 4-0, and I'm counting on a Matty Cash clean sheet.
An assist as well.
Yep.
It's going to happen.
Yeah,
goal.
why not?
An AI predictor tool told me it's going to happen, so it's going to happen. So I think we're all leaning towards one way. Of course, I've said it before, like, oh, it's not variance, it's football. But pre-match here, everything is pointing towards a Villa comfortable win. Really comfortable win. So let's move on to Wolverhampton Wanderers against Tottenham Hotspur. This one now, Spurs' defense is completely gutted, but it's the attack that we're bothered about. And for me, so we're talking about selling Spurs. People were tempted to sell Spurs and did so when Arsenal had Sheffield United and they went back to Saka. People are now, Maddison is flagged. It's the early kickoff, guys. So I think we've all got 2 free transfers. I think we all rolled last week. I think a lot of people rolled transfers last week. It's the early kickoff. So if you can hold on and then you get the team league that Maddison starts, then you can, make your call from there. You're gonna kick. You're always gonna kick yourself if you transfer him out and then he's fit and he plays. So it's an easy hold for me. We can't really look at the Chelsea fixture because similar to the red card Basuma got against Luton, you can't really have the same expectations and judge the players the same when they're down to 10 men or, in this case, down to 9 men and playing that ridiculous high line. But anything away from Son or Maddison is sideways. I cannot see, maybe Saka in for Maddison if you've got the funds. But we've got another case of Saka going off early in a game with a knock before an international break. Again, the exact same thing. The last time, he went off with a knock, he didn't play, international break, he didn't play for England, and then he came back. He's gone off injured again. So, apart from Saka, where are you going to go? Who is better than Saka and Maddison in midfield right now who you could bring in? Because you don't need to look at stats to know how good Ange Ball is and how they play football. We don't care about the defense. We care about our midfielders and forward scoring goals. You know that Son and Maddison as well are the key players in that attack. It doesn't get spread around like it would, say, at Manchester City. Like if you're getting points and goals, it's going to be Son and Maddison that's 9 times out of 10 involved in that situation. They've got no European football. So in theory, they should be fresh and ready every single week. So you don't have to worry as much about rotation because they only play 1 game a week because they've not got the extra cups. So if you show me a move that isn't sideways, I'm not even going to say it's a hold. I'm still saying Spurs is a buy because they attack. We don't care about how many goals they concede. Son is still down the middle. Maddison has been a fantastic FPL asset when he's fit for years. If you've got them, where are you going that's better than that? Like, you show me an upgrade in terms of stats or eye tests or anything, I'm happy to hear it because I don't think there is anyone better than having those 2 players in your team right now. Tien, buy, sell, hold with Spurs. What are your thoughts on these guys now?
I don't have Son. I have Pedro Porro and Madison at the moment. And yeah, to be honest, Porro has been quite disappointing, even though he kept 2 clean sheets in the last 4, but with no attacking outputs. He did have some really good chances, like against Luton, for example, but he couldn't put that away. But with Spurs losing 3 of the best 4 defenders at the moment, their defense gonna be, gonna be a big problem, and it looks like Ange's not gonna change the system too much. So just keep playing the high line. So I think they will keep conceding. So I'm open to selling Porro this game week. If everybody else is fit and healthy in my team, then I think Porro will be someone that I look to sell because I have 2 free transfers. Madison, I'm very, very open to just keep as well. Even I don't have Saka, but I don't feel the need to to sell Madison for Saka or anybody else. But of course, we wait for his fitness update. If he's fit, I could still sell him for Saga, but I don't think it'll be a straightforward sort of no-brainer kind of move. And I think once again, it's quite important to keep in mind that Spurs have a pretty decent run of fixtures all the way through to game week. I don't know, 18, 19, 20. Obviously, they play Man City and Newcastle, but those are the only two hard fixtures. And in blank game week 18, they play Everton at home as well. So if I sell Madison, for example, I will need to find a way to get like Son back in my team as quickly as possible, because I'm not comfortable with going without any Spurs attack for this run of fixture.
Yeah, I've just seen people put Martinelli ahead of the Spurs boys. Not even close. Palmer for Maddison. And Haaland for Haaland were his last two transfers. But yeah, you only have Maddison, right? Again.
Yep.
Regret selling Son?
I never had him.
But I remember your initial thoughts were you were going to bring him in, and then on the wild card, and then you were like, well, if I'm going to transfer him out anyway, I might as well not have him, right? That was the decision you made.
It was between him and Salah that I could only get one. So
because you had Watkins?
I got Salah instead. Watkins, yeah.
Which
so yeah, I would have liked to have Son, but yeah, never had him. So yeah.
Mira, what are your thoughts on the Spurs assets? Think it's time to sell, stick, buy?
Yeah, so I sold up all my Spurs assets in between sort of wildcarding in game week 9, and then I took out Maddison and brought in Saka. So I already made those moves. So I feel like I got away with the last game week, not having any Spurs assets. So that felt very lucky. But I agree, Tien. I feel like not going without any Spurs assets with the fixture run, which look, Ange plays a very attacking game, right? So I can't imagine not bringing in a Son. I'm more inclined to bring in Son just because of his position. And also now thinking, like, just because like their defense is so weak at the moment, does that mean Maddison's going to have to be on defensive duties as well? So does that mean he falls back a little bit? What does that sort of look like for him? Obviously, Brendan Johnson is playing. Richarlison's out as well. So, it could be Brendan Johnson, Son, and Kulusevski, right? Like up the front. And then does that mean Maddison sort of, plays in his regular position, or does he go deeper? Don't know. So I feel like I would probably want to bring in Son eventually. I just don't know how, and hence the reason why if I was to I guess sell Haaland, then that does give me an opportunity to upgrade to bring in a Son, but not too far away from, so not necessarily upgrading Gordon at like 5.6 mil or 5.7 mil that he is. It might be Bowen later on. And Bowen's a good option for at least the next 2 game weeks as well. So West Ham have got a home fixture against Forest, and then they've got Burnley away. So if there was, an opportunity to jump off of Maddison because he's injured. I don't think he is injured, but let's say he is and his output is kind of impacted. Bowen is an option as well.
Yeah, there's talk about Bowen potentially being down the middle.
Yeah,
potentially.
Yeah,
she heard it. She told me actually. She's the one who told me. She said Bowen down the middle. I was like, really? Yeah, I think the defensive backline's in. Oh, really? Okay. Ryan, your thoughts on Spurs assets?
Spurs, I think defense probably a sell, or not probably, maybe definitely a sell because their defense is shot in the foot. And now that you've heard the Estupinian news, I think it's worth a punt from Poro to Estupinian as well, potentially. Midfield, Son, I would hold because he's still playing out of position. And also still maybe not in the short term because they've got City, but probably after that worth a buy at least. Madison, just like Mira said, I'm a bit worried. I own Madison. I've got 2 free transfers, and the problem is when you have 2 free transfers, I don't really want to burn it. And he's the only one who I look in my team and I'm going, maybe I'll sell you because I already have Saka and all. So I'm in a position where I kind of have to use the 2 free transfers, and I'm like, maybe I can sell Madison and buy him. Would I buy him back later? Probably depends on Spurs and how they do. The one thing I'm worried is the reason Spurs were able to play a high line was because of both Romero and Van de Ven. They had the speed to be able to go back and win the ball if something went bad wrong. Like if it went batshit crazy, they were able to run back and win. And Van de Ven was seriously fast for a defender as well. Dyer and Højbjerg aren't that fast. So that means they might play way more deeper potentially. I know Anxious, he wants to play high attacking line and all, but I don't think he's going to play as high as he was trying, even after they went down to like 10 men and 9 men. Then that raises the question, will Madison have to be the one who gets deep, gets the ball, drags it up to midfield, and then plays that pass? So that's where I'm like, will he have more defensive work? Will his output be diminished because of that? And then I'm like, okay, there are plenty of other midfield options that I can probably go to. So it's a mixture of wanting to use a transfer, not showing where else to use it apart from maybe on a Madison. Unless Saka, we get news that Saka is like not going to play Burnley, then I'm like, yeah, kick him out of the team. But then, yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, the thing with Spurs as well, they have 6 defenders in FPL. 10 defenders in FPL. One of them's like a youth player, so 9. 6 of them have a flag. Orange or red. But we said earlier, we don't look at the Spurs defense, really. We look at the attack, right? So, and I get what you mean about we've got 2 transfers. Like, I'm a big fan of just going Kabore to Branthwaite of Everton, if instead of burning it.
I don't have that.
But I said when we talked about our lessons learned and talking about the in-depth stuff, I always say that I think the most undervalued ability from elite managers is patience. And I think we're itching to use these transfers to have some fun, to do so. And that's fine. If that's how you play FPL, that's fantastic. Go ahead and do it. I could easily go a doggy to Mitchell and Maddison to Saka, and people will probably say that that's a pretty good move. Right, Gahey in for a few games instead of a doggy who's suspended, and then I need to think about benching João Pedro and Maddison to Saka. You know, Arsenal's got a great run of fixtures, and Saka is star boy of Arsenal, right? But it just feels like it's sideways, and I think I'll just be able to have a bit of patience and just go elsewhere with it. I think people will make some rash decisions about cash. Maybe again sell some Spurs assets. So I just think this is a good part to just say, like, Spurs are still pretty good. You know, Son and Maddison are still pretty good, so not necessarily run away from them. So let's go into the strengths. I do have on the it is predicted from Scout that Højbjerg and Eric Dyer are going to be the 2 centre backs. It's I mean, it is what it is. What can you say? Romero suspended, Van de Ven injured, Udogie suspended, Davies orange flag, Perisic is out for the whole season. Sessegnon, we have no idea when his return dates are. So you've literally got Eric Dyer in a midfielder. Unless you can somehow, you can't even put Royal as centre back because they need him at left back because they don't have a left back. They're in big trouble defensively. Fortunately, they're against Wolves, who are not the greatest in attack, but the team strengths here, obviously, it's the Spurs attack. They've got 23 goals like Arsenal, but of those 23 goals, Arsenal have had 6 penalties and 5 from corners. So 11 goals. Now, I'm not trying to take that away from Arsenal because they've scored just as many goals as Spurs, but you can't rely on penalties and corners. Right, so just to put that in perspective, Spurs have scored 0 penalties and 3 from corners. So that's the difference, but the fact that their attack is still potent, and the points are just basically coming from the players that you want them to. Arsenal, they spread the points around. Man City, they spread the points around. Spurs, it's Son and Maddison heavy. So the team strength is their attack is still fantastic, even though the defense has been decimated. The team strengths for Wolves, like I said about Fulham, like I've said about the likes of Everton, they don't get smashed. I don't see a 4-5-0 smashing of Wolves. I think they're a solid team. They know what they're doing. Two good holding midfielders that they have in Lamina and Boubacar Traore. They have like a 3-back that goes into a 5-back, so they're defensively solid. So yeah, they're team strengths for me for these guys. Tien, team strengths, Spurs and Wolves.
Yeah, so it's for Spurs, definitely in attack. I think, with the front four of Son, Kulusevski, Johnson, and Madison, I think it's pretty good. Now, interestingly, their stats that suggest that they are better, or they have better attacking outputs away from home. So this is away game, right? So they have more big chances away from home, and they have much better goal conversion away from home as well. So I think the XG is about the same, 1.7 a game, home and away, but they score 2.3 goals per game away compared to 1.8 at home. And they have strongest chance creation through the middle as well, which I think favors Son. But Wolves are not that bad in terms of defensively. Generally, as a unit, especially at home, I think they're a good defensive unit. So yeah, it's gonna be like strong attack and strong or decent defense. Which one come out on top?
Ryan, thoughts on team strength?
So Spurs, I think the reason they're away is slightly better is because they've had tougher home fixtures. So they've played the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea. Chelsea are they got hammered against Chelsea, that affects as well. And then they've played United as well at home. So it's slightly dented in terms of the home attacking stats. So away is a bit more better because of that. They've only played Arsenal, which has kind of like been the only tough game. So maybe that's why. But then the thing is, yes, they're a good attack. Or at least we still think they're a good attack. I do think we probably need to reevaluate the attack, regardless of how they might have been before. If your defense gets decimated, you're going to suffer. We've seen United this season, absolutely no back four, absolutely trash. We saw Liverpool last season, plenty of injuries in the back line, weren't great. So that's going to be a problem. I think we need to kind of reevaluate it. They may be good, but Wolves are no pushovers as well. They're mid-table team Wolves, so they can keep it low in terms of a scoreline. That's the one thing.
Mira, team strengths.
Yeah, I agree. Look, they're a really attacking side. We know that. I was really impressed that they were still creating chances against Chelsea, being down to 10 men. So it weren't many chances, but the fact that they were still creating chances was pretty impressive. So yeah, look, I think it's going to be still playing very attacking. Completely agree with Ryan, though. I think that they're also going to really struggle to kind of move the ball up as well, like from the back, like they normally do without Van der Ven and Udogie especially. And yeah, so yeah. And Wolves, like you say, Ryan, they're a mid-table team. I had a really good chat with Black Wolf, sorry, the other week. And he convinced me otherwise, around, he's a massive Wolves supporter, convinced me otherwise around, Wolves' attack and defense being pretty sound. It's decent. And so, yeah, I mean, they are obviously without Pedro Neto. We're not expecting Pedro Neto to be back until after international break as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be average all round, but probably Spurs a bit more attacky.
Well, going for team weaknesses then. Definitely, we already know. So for Spurs, it's the defense. They're already an attacking side, and now they've missing like half of their, or more than half of their defense. The positive for Spurs is what you've just said. Neto is out, so that's a weakness for. Sorry, my daughter's listening to a fire engine there. Get the life out of me. Neto being out for Wolves is a huge weakness for their attack. They're a mid to lower mid-table in all key attacking stats and XG tables and things like that. So without Neto, those stats and chances are only going one way, and it ain't up. So that's a weakness, being Neto-less for Wolves. For this as well, they've kept one clean sheet all season. 1-0 at Everton in game week 3, and they were very lucky to come away from Everton with a clean sheet. And they play against Spurs, who've scored in every single game. They're vulnerable as well down the left flank, not just down the middle, being the second worst for both crosses and chances conceded down that side. So if anything about buying and selling Spurs assets, I really like the look of Johnson if he's going to be in that front line for a while with Richarlison out, because I believe he's around 6 million. I'm not saying triple up on Spurs, but if you've got like a Son and a Brennan Johnson, who is, where is he? 5.8 million.
5.8. Yeah.
I don't think that's the worst going down that side, because it looks like he wants to set up Son. Like Grealish to Haaland, Brennan Johnson could be that to Heung-min Son. He doesn't seem like a greedy or selfish kind of winger. Only 14 goals for Wolves, no Neto, lower mid-table for key stats, just means it's a favourable fixture for Spurs. So the weakness is the Spurs defence, obviously. The weakness for Wolves is down that side and also down the middle, and they're just not as good. I don't know how they're going to keep out the likes of Son and Maddison in this game, if Maddison's fit. Team weaknesses, Tien?
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered everything. So yes, and Ryan mentioned that as well. The missing defensive players will not only impact their defensive performance, but ball possession, ball progression, playing from the back, that kind of high line philosophy as well. So the attack will probably be impacted somewhat, which we'll have to see how that pans out. And yeah, as you say, Wolves much higher chance conceded on their right hand side, which Brennan Johnson could be a cheeky pun if someone want to go there. And I think surprisingly they seem to be doing, or stats wise at least, seem to be worse at home than away. It could be fixture related, but then attacking stats go out of the window because most of them were involved Neto anyway, who isn't there anymore. So, yeah, they as I said, sort of mid-table, okay defense at home, but nothing to talk about.
Yeah, Ryan, anything to add?
No, we've touched on most of it already. But yeah, just like mid-table in terms of Wolves, and I guess Spurs defense is a problem. But yeah, that's it.
Mira, the same?
Yes, same. Nothing more to add there.
Yeah, well, look, when you've watched the left back and centre back get red carded when they've already got their other centre back injured, you don't need to be an expert to be like, this is an issue. Like, you just need to count how many players they have. Like, hold on a minute, Højbjerg, you're not a defender. What are you doing? Oh, you have to be there because we need 11 people on the pitch. I think it's a pretty straightforward one. Predictions. I think I'm being generous with one goal here, but I'm also just saying I don't really believe in the Wolves attack. I've gone 3-1 for Spurs. They'll get the goals, but that issue, we'll call it, in defence, I think Wolves will at least get one. I see a break down the left flank and a ball into Son from Brennan Johnson for a goal. I see a Johnson assist, Son goal on this one. That's what I'm going for. Tien, your predictions?
2-1 to Spurs.
Go on. And no more goals? You think it'll be quite close?
I don't think we can underestimate the impact on both defense and attack for those missing players.
Yeah. Ryan?
Same 2-1. And like we mentioned, right, Wolves are no pushovers per se. They're a decent team, so they won't concede too many.
And Mira?
So I've gone 3-2. So, sorry, I should say Wolves 2, Spurs 3. I reckon Wolves will probably get an extra goal just because Huang seems to be a little bit on form at the moment as well. And Cunha, like they are sort of, I think they did all right without Neto so far. And so just considering how defensively bad Spurs could be, I think there was like chatter on Twitter even about can they bring Reguilon back, or they're going to be playing their academy sort of players as well, and so we just don't know how that's going to go. So I think given it's an away match and Wolves are pretty decent at home, I think it's going to be a bit of a surprise, but Spurs win.
I think you can rely on Dyer. I know he has his critics, and he's not always the best. But Eric Dyer to come in for a game against Wolves, I think he'll be fine. It's just the fact they literally don't have anyone to put next to him. Like they don't literally have anyone. Who?
He loves a long distance goal, Eric Dyer. I know Brett.
Yeah.
Brett's son is a fan of Eric Dyer.
Yeah.
So
So I just it's just they don't have anyone next to him. Like I would have thought they're probably going to go for Højbjerg for his experience as well, because I would have thought Basuma might have fit more the role of being the centre back with him, or maybe even going to a back three. But would you trust Porro, Dyer, and Royale in a back three? I don't think I would. But that's Big Angie's problem to solve, not ours. So let's go into our player review picks. So for those that don't know, we pick a player for 4 game weeks, and because that's usually our sort of agreed limit on if you're going to transfer a player in, you should probably hold them for 4 weeks, unless you're going to wild card, and then that doesn't count, right? So we'll start with Tien, who we'll start with Lucian, who's not here, but I'll briefly just do it. His 4 game week pick was Cash, which we talked about last week. So his 4 game weeks were 2-2-5-0, which I think I'll just quickly echo what we said last week. The fact that Cash hasn't got as many. He got good points when it finished last week, but he's not scored as many points as we would have liked him to. But he was his 4-week pick. It wasn't a bad pick in general, because those 4 matches were Wolves, West Ham, Luton, and Forest. So remember, we don't take points on this show as like the final result. Cash at that moment in time 4 weeks ago was a good pick with Wolves, West Ham, Luton, and Forest to play. So we'll go to Tien, who had, I mean, something you could absolutely not consider could happen. You chose Diaz. Can you discuss your 4 game week player pick?
Yeah, so Diaz, he got, 2-6-0-6. And obviously, after the first 2 game weeks, something very, very unpredictable happened. So he didn't play because of that. Any model can predict someone who's going to be kidnapped, or someone's parents are going to be kidnapped in an overseas country. But he did get 2 attacking returns. And even like the last game, right? He only came on for 7 minutes or something, and he managed to score as well. So unforeseen circumstances, but I think the logic was there to pick him, I guess.
Ryan?
So in the interest of not wanting to at the time break Darwin Nunes or Watkins, I ended up going Solanke, who got 1-7-2-2, which is a bit disappointing because he had like decent fixtures. But then again, it's Bournemouth that I was picking from, so can't really expect too much.
So we usually sort of agree or disagree about it, if the pick was a success or not. Just quickly going back to Cash, Would you put that as still a good pick, even though he didn't get the
That
result?
would have been Watkins has blood on his hands for that missed assist chance.
I would still say that's a
double-digit
green
catch.
pick.
Yeah.
Like it's still a green pick. I know he's not got what he should have, but and that's fine. But Diaz, how can we decide if that's if
That's like my Botman last time got injured. Diaz.
in the first, what was it? He got the game against Sheffield, scored all the points, and then was injured for 3 of the 4 games.
Yeah.
But he came on and scored, so why not? Solanke, you've just put still an L here for you. Your forward picks have been really bad, but I don't think that's on you, Ryan, because we've discussed before the fact that who is there to pick as a forward? Haaland, Watkins, Wilson. Am I missing anyone else? Is it just those 3? Is it really just those 3? Who am I missing as a forward?
Darwin maybe, but then I didn't want to pick Darwin because I was going to break him.
My last point, yeah, I was Darwin.
Yes,
I was a Darwin pick. He got 5 away to Brighton. He got 4 28 minutes in an assist against Everton. He got 10 goal, assist, and 1 bonus against Nottingham Forest, and then he blanked when he played against Luton. I said before, if you've got Darwin and he doesn't start, you're happy. Because when he comes off the bench, that's when he scores. You give him a ball 6 yards out and he skies it. We said earlier about he causes chaos and he gets the stats, and I'm glad I don't own him in FPL because I say rip my hair out. I don't have any. If I had any, I definitely wouldn't have any anymore. If I own this guy in FPL. Similar to the Diaz pick, if those 2 would have played, I think Diaz would have got more points. It's still a good pick. Like Darwin is like a pick. He doesn't take up a valuable slot in your side. It feels like that second striker position is always up for grabs. Haaland and someone. And Darwin is that someone that I think you can always just have a go on. You just can't trust him. You're not sure about his minutes. You're not sure about his finishing ability at times. But 21 points in 4 game weeks for 7.5 million. It works out at basically 3 and something goals, like points wise. Worked out pretty well in the end, but would you be? I think Miri, you're the closest one to thinking about bringing him in. If Wilson's injured and you fancy selling Haaland, you think you'd be going down the Darwin route?
No, not yet.
Oh, not yet. Then when?
Not yet.
Then
not
when?
yet.
When?
I would.
14.
Oh,
Game week 14.
14, yeah. I mean, they've got Liverpool at home to Fulham, right? I think
in 14. Yeah, that's right. Then Sheffield.
Yeah. So they've got a couple of good fixtures coming up there. I haven't seen the European sort of schedule around then.
No, there's no European there. That's the midweek Premier League fixture. That's the one problem.
Yes. There's a couple of back-to-back, isn't there? I think in space of 9 days or something like that.
That's the one. 14 to 16. That's the green. Yeah.
3 fixtures, isn't there? Jeez, that's going to be fun.
That happens twice.
Yeah, that's insane. There's going to be loads of rotation, and I think that's what it is for me. Like, if I would love to bring in Darwin, I just think he is chaos. And so, like, he is there for potentially those tap-ins or right in front of the goal and passing it off to someone else as an assist because he missed the goal. Who knows? But the point is that he is a chance magnet, as William's Tropical Farm just said in the chat, and that's precisely the only reason why I would potentially go there, because there's a lot of opportunities coming his way.
And that's what you want. That's when you say, like, if you're getting the chances and the stats are good, but he's not putting them away. It's exactly how I felt when I owned Jackson for 6 or 7 game weeks, and I wasn't going to sell. I'm like, he's getting the chances. It'll click. It'll get there. Or if it doesn't, you throw enough poo, some sticks, right? Like if he keeps doing it, one of them's got to go in just by the odds
Or just
of
lots of red
it happening.
cards.
Yeah. So
Yep.
just
Again, 9 man, he'll be fine.
so going on to the new picks for the next 4 game weeks, let's quickly go through. Lucian is the defender. So teacher FPL Lucian, and he's going for Ben White, which I think is a very sensible and smart pick. A lot of us are going to look at defenders as well, which we'll chat about later, because defense people looking to sell cash, people have to sell a doggy. Who's going to be the third defender? And just to touch on before we do that, also, it's an early warning, but one that I would suggest people that if you are going to burn transfers, look at your bench. Have a good 2 benches, because what we just touched on with fixtures is what we've touched on about why we potentially might sell Trippier. Was that last week or 2 weeks ago? Because we've got 2 clumps 2 weeks ago, right? Or
No, last week I
last
think
week
we had.
we've got 2 clumps coming up where it's 3 games and 3 games. So just be wary that rotation is very likely going to happen, especially in those teams that have backup and also have European fixtures, because we've got, like, not looking at time zones, but in terms of just think about the days, 3rd of December, 8th of December, 11th of December, and then like 16, 23, 26. We've got like clumps of teams having like 3 games in a week and then a week off and then another 3 games in a week. There are only a handful of teams, and this is another plus, I think, for Spurs in the likes of Maddison and Son. They've got nothing else. So they could play 3 games in a week because they don't have anything else. Trippier, who is 32? 32? 33?
Yeah,
32?
that's why I told you you played a week by week situation with Trippier.
But just an example of, are they going to play? And Darwin, whose rotation risk as it is he going to play week in, week out? But anyway, coming on, that's an early warning to just, if you're going to burn, maybe focus on a bench move to someone who you wouldn't mind coming on from a team that probably won't rotate, like Crystal Palace. I don't imagine them rotating Anderson or Gay here as the 2 centre halves, right? But his pick is Ben White. 2 relegation threatened teams in the next 4. White and Saka work well together against Brentford's more offensive and that was the end of his notes, which I think would finish with left-hand side. But so I'll finish that sentence for him. But I think that's a fine pick. Again, I said earlier about Saliba. I don't know if I'd stretch the extra money to White, because I know he's a right back, but he's not exactly a right wing back for 5.7 million. But Arsenal's got Burnley, Brentford, Wolves, and Luton in the next 4. I think it's a solid pick. No disagreements. Going on to a bit of a fancy pick now. Tien has been pretty rock solid in his picks this year. I think he's had no. So we've got green. We've got the traffic light system, right? We've got the green, the yellowy, orange, and the red, right? I have better picks, but he's not had a red pick yet. Tien is putting his neck on the line this week. Tien, who are you backing as your midfield pick for the next 4?
This could be the first red. So I'm going a little bit against my normal sort of play style as well, going for someone that is slightly minus risk. So Mohamed Kudus from West Ham. So the fixtures are great. Forest, Burnley, Crystal Palace, and Tottenham. So Tottenham is not great, but we've already talked about how defensively they are a bit depleted for now. So all good for attacks. So Kudus started in the last 2 games, but he looked particularly good against Brentford. I think he got like the highest average position out of all the West Ham players. Took 4 shots, 3 in the box, 1 big chance, and one wonderful goal that he scored. So Antonio has been pretty poor. So I'm hoping that Kudus will get more consistent minutes and starts, and could even play, a bit further up front if Antonio is actually left out of the team. So imagining Ben Rama on the left, Owen potentially up front, number 9, and Kudus just behind him, or something like that. So that would be a pretty punty, but I think it's gonna be a good pick, hopefully.
Yeah, he's come with a great reputation, and said earlier that Bowen potentially could be down the middle. And I've seen some West Ham fans sort of calling for Antonio to have a bit of a drop in because he's missing a few too many chances. And he scores a lovely goal. That's a picture for Kudus this week. We go into attack, Ryan's favourite position to pick.
I wanted to know if there was like a skip option this week.
Yeah,
but
I saw that. I just put a picture of Watkins, but I don't know who your final decision is.
no, so the reason I wanted to skip was because I couldn't trust anyone who was not Watkins or not Haaland, because of the reasons we mentioned at the start of the show as well in terms of Haaland's replacements. Because everyone is either bad fixtures, or the ones with good fixtures are minutes risk or not long term for 4 picks. So I've gone with Watkins, the one you have on screen, mainly because if I was to say Haaland, I would be a bit of a hypocrite right here, thinking about selling Haaland and then going to put in him as my 4 game week pick. But yeah, Watkins, because still a good option for the next 3, maybe under 15. The one thing we mentioned with these like multiple fixtures, like the 14, 15, 16, the one thing Watkins has is that he doesn't have competition in Villa as a striker role. So he's most likely going to play those fixtures. That's the one key thing with Watkins. So I think he's a good hold for now.
Oh, poor Duran. You're giving no respect to the young Villa man. But yeah, to like, you're probably not going to bench Watkins. And probably by that time they're going to be fine with Europe. So you focus on the league, right? Because I think they're aiming for the Europa League / Champions League, right? So you can't go playing around with that. I've got the wildcard pick. I could have chosen any player in the entire game. I've gone for the super spicy, incredible pick. like, oh, it's tasty. I've already spoken about him today. I've gone for Gahey, Crystal Palace centre back. I know you're all like saliva filling your mouth with the deliciousness of this incredible pick. But look, I did this for realism, like similar to why we don't just pick Salah and Haaland every week. And also, a lot of the time with our own picks, we look at them for our own teams. And I am looking at this guy for my own team to come in for a doggy. And I even put in my notes, I know it's not a sexy pick. It's realistic. People have defensive issues. They're thinking about selling Cash. You've got Trippier, Cash, and who to go next to him. And why not Crystal Palace? I just like Crystal Palace. I started the season with Johnson and Anderson, because Crystal Palace are just a really excellent defensive side. Even though stat-wise they're not all up there, they don't get smashed. They work really well together. They're going to start to have attacking players come back in, so they don't have to be so reliant on the defense. Edsay should be back now. Elise is on his way back. Edwards back in the side as well. Gahey is absolutely nailed next to Anderson at the centre back slot, so it's not like he's going to get rotated out. But for me, it's the next 4 fixtures, and they're not just good fixtures; they're really good from a defensive point of view. They've got Everton, who are poor in attack. They've got Luton away, who are poor. Even though Luton are good at home, they're not still good in attack. They've got West Ham, who's the tricky one, away from home, and then they've got Bournemouth at home in the next 4. So in terms of the attack he's going to face Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's going to face Morris. He's going to face maybe Antonio, maybe Bowen. We don't know yet because it's 3 weeks away. And he's going to face Solanke. And Crystal Palace are a side that can keep a clean sheet, in my opinion, against pretty much anyone. So I definitely think they can keep some clean sheets here. So yeah, even though statistically they seem to be a bit mid-table in defense, I just think that they're an excellent defensive side. But apart from West Ham, those attack 3 of those 4 fixtures for a defender, and 4.6 million for value. I don't think you can go wrong. And he usually gets good bonus points from a Palace game as well because he's good on the ball. So yeah, I know it's not the sauciest pick you'll see, but it's one that people might find a bit of value in because, oh, I need a defender. Where do I go? Yep, if you can stretch to Arsenal, but if not, 4.6 million. Great 4 or 5 fixtures they've got, so you can bring him in, play him. He'll get 90 minutes. It is what it is. You don't have to worry about it for the next 5 weeks. Let's go to captaincy. I've just got a picture of Mo and Haaland, but I'm 0 for 5 in captaincy. Tien made an excellent point that we all discussed last week, that it's not about differentials this season. Captaincy is going to be probably the deciding factor. We sat here last week. I said Salah, but we all settled on Haaland. No one was right for anyone last week. Son didn't get anything. Haaland didn't get anything. Salah didn't get... Everyone was wrong last week, but I'm 0 for 5. Like, I'm not picking the best. I'm picking good choices, like Salah or Son or Haaland. I'm not picking bad choices. I'm just not picking the right one. So I'm tempted to just spin a wheel because I don't know which one is gonna turn up this week. Like, is Haaland's probably gonna play, but if he's got Chelsea. Salah was subpar against Luton, who are actually decent at home. Should be rested in Europe and is at home to Brentford, but Brentford aren't a pushover side. Saka has got Burnley, but we've talked about earlier, Saka went off injured, and we don't know if he's injured or actually injured. Mitoma has got Sheffield United, which looks very interesting. However, I'm scared about Brighton's rotation. Mitoma, they rotate, but Mitoma still plays. Is this going to be the week? Like, it's just one of them where the week that you put the captaincy on him, he's going to get rotated. So do you trust that? But the outside one for me is Diaby and Watkins. But again, if Watkins or if Diaby especially doesn't play in Europe, does that mean he's rested or does that mean he's dropped? Watkins, I think, is a top captaincy option this week against Fulham. But it's really close. I'd still think Salah's number 1, Haaland number 2, but this could be a week where I personally take a punt on a Mitoma or a Diaby. I don't have Saka. But yeah, they would be my picks. So Tien, who are your thoughts on captaincy?
Yeah, so currently my first team is sitting on Salah. I think he's still the obvious one. Obviously, he plays 90 minutes for Liverpool, being the best attacking team in terms of XG. Salah has the best XGI at home as well compared to his. His home form is much better than away form, and he's on pens. I don't think there's any argument about that. So compared to all the other options, don't fancy Haaland playing Chelsea. So I think Watkins is probably the standout option from the rest because he also played 90, right? He's not on pens anymore, but he's more more of the talisman for Villa, who is the beast at home that we discussed earlier. The chance creation all going down through the middle. Strongest for Villa in attack and the worst for Fulham defensively as well. So it's all just every direction is pointing toward Watkins having a good game. So I think if you don't want to go Salah, or if you don't have Salah and if you have Watkins, I think he's a very, very strong option. Mitoma, as you said, rotation could be a worry. And to be honest, Brighton haven't actually looked that good in the last few games as well. I know that Mitoma got an assist last game week, but that was a pretty lucky assist, right? So, and Saka, yeah, I mean, it's bad defense, but he is someone that actually has been staying very wide. I think it hasn't been taking as many shots as he used to be. So, and he's maybe on pen, maybe not on pen, depending on his days or his mood on the day. He may give some away. So yeah, it's like there's all decent fixtures for some of them, but in terms of like clear options between Salah and Watkins for me.
Yep. Brian, captaincy thoughts?
So I'm 0 for 4 because I went and picked what everyone thought was the most obvious one. And I feel like are we going to be in this situation where we go, oh, this is the obvious one, but we've always failed to pick the correct one. So maybe for the lols, I'll just put it on Watkins because of what we've all said and everything. And I was just checking the times that they both played. They both played at the same time as well, so that's also fine. The Unless something changes in the Conference League where Villa play, I don't mind punting it on Watkins, to be honest. I don't really have too much to lose. I mean, the 1 million. Might as well try something different and let's see if we can get a boost.
Yeah. Mira, captaincy?
A little bit like you, Rob. I feel like I'm spinning the wheel because while you guys have been chatting, I've been thinking about another outside sort of captaincy pick. But I'll start from, I really wanted to put it on Saka, just because it's Burnley home, and he played really well in the UCL, but he's been knocked about so much, and we don't know what his status is at the moment. So yeah, not too tempted by that anymore. I have got my captaincy on Salah at the moment. And based on, our conversation today, I was thinking Watkins as well. I mean, the no penalties does put me off a little bit, but given Villa at home, could be very explosive. However, I was just thinking about Trippier as well. So Bournemouth have conceded 48 chances on the left flank. And yeah, so if I'm feeling punty and a little bit, I can't bring in Wilson as well. Maybe, just to kind of make some nudges in the right direction, hopefully, with the rank. And like you, Ryan, I'm sitting just under 2 mil at the moment. And yeah, I just fancy trying out something different. It feels like a game week that, yeah, it could be a good chance because there's so many options at the moment with spinning the wheel. So yeah, I reckon Trippier maybe outside sort of chance they're putting the armband on him.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty likely to not captain Haaland this week, right? I think we've all got it on Salah at the minute. Is that right? Just at the moment.
Yep.
It was until I just now switched it to Watkins, but yeah.
Honest, I don't have Watkins, and Diaby for me is a very, very serious choice. Incredible. I just hate having the idea that they could not play. Like if I get it, if I somehow had a leak to say Diaby's definitely starting, I'm looking at that game. Like Chelsea have great defensive stats. They're like top 5 in most key metrics, right? They're not, and even if they weren't, like you don't expect City to go to Chelsea and smash them 3-0. And we've said before the issue with with Man City is they'll score maybe 2 or 3 and then just pass it around the back for the rest of the game. Teams like Villa and Spurs and Brighton don't do that. They'll keep attacking. So even if it's 2-0 to Villa, you don't think Watkins is going to get subbed off, and you don't think they're going to try and stop scoring and just sort of play it around the back. I think the simple one is just going to be Salah, because he's also going to give you the effective ownership protection, because he's probably going to be over 100%, at least around my rank of like 200k. And he's at home. Liverpool dominate at home. And if he doesn't play in Europe, he'll have had a week's rest, and they'll definitely want to reply from that Luton fixture after drawing 1-1. And it's just that situation where Salah's not looked great, but in the past he's scored points, and now he's not. And I hate this game sometimes because it's like you want to take the risk. It's not even a risk to go for a Diaby, Matoma, Watkins captaincy, even Son down the middle against Wolves. They're not bad picks. It just feels like all of us have been just on the wrong end of every pick. So I think what we should do is we should somehow make a pact and say, right, I'll do Son. I'll put my name. I'll do Son. One of you do Watkins, one of you do Salah, one of you do Haaland, and then next week, one of us at least can come back here next week and be like, yes, we finally did something with captaincy. Because I said with the rank I am, I've got the players. If I had the captaincy, I'll have been about something like 55 points better off. It's not that I don't have the players. I've stuck the C on the wrong guy. And it's costed me for the last 5 weeks. It cost everyone this week, so it doesn't really count as much. But any final comments on captaincy? Are you swayed, sticking on Salah? Apart from Watkins for Ryan?
The only thing with Salah, like I don't mind Salah, but we mentioned so many times of how lucky he's been to get some points. The one thing is Brentford aren't really pushovers. If it was some other team that was a bit more easier, I would have been way more confident. It's just that I feel like there is that element of what do you call it? Calculated risk that I can take. I feel like this is like one of those calculated risks that I can take, given that the opponents aren't as bad.
Yeah, and that's the other thing as well. Like, we're not auto-captain Haaland because, one, he's away, two, it's Chelsea. Brentford's just in that area of like, Liverpool can beat them at home, but are they going to put 3 or 4 past them? Probably not.
Yeah, that's the question.
Probably not. If Watkins gets a rest, or even if he doesn't, you just know he's going to play, and he's got Fulham. You think Villa could get 3 past Fulham? I think Villa can get 3 at home past Fulham easier than Liverpool at the moment can get 3 past Brentford. And that, I don't have Watkins, so unfortunately I don't have that headache. Or you can just go for effective ownership and just captain Haaland or Salah and trundle along. But it's another game week where a captaincy pick like Trippier, for example, Trippier can concede a goal and get a yellow card and he'll walk away from a game with 3 bonus points, right? Which turns to 6 points if you've got the captaincy on him. And Mira, you've said it yourself. We said about how bad they are defensively, the second worst in the Premier League for like all stats. They concede chances down that side. Bournemouth aren't exactly clinical or threatening an attack. He walks away with a clean sheet. He's probably walking away with 3 bonus points. He's already on for 9 points before he's even potentially got an assist. So as an outside punt, I think Trippier is, and he's high effective ownership as well. He's 49.2% owned. So you're also getting a little bit of that as well. So. Yeah, all right. We'll leave it there then for today. I think there's a lot of good options this week. And thanks again, Mira, for subbing on in for Lucian. Hopefully we'll have you back again soon. Great to see you. And thanks everyone for joining. And as always, a good one. Bye-bye.